welcome to Unit 2. In this unit we're going to look at the standalone mode for JBoss EAP, that is to say a single server instance. Within this unit we'll take a look at the standalone directory structure, including the EAP based directory structure. We'll take a tour around the standalone.xml file. We'll re-examine extensions, profiles and subsystems, expand on what we covered in the previous unit, in Unit 1. We'll play with the management interface. We'll look at configuring profiles. We'll also look at configuring things like interfaces, socket binding groups, and how to handle doing deployments. There is 3 labs associated with this unit as well. So let's talk about standalone mode. Standalone mode, as the name implies, is a single EAP server instance running within the context of its own JVM, typically on its own box, although there may be multiple standalone instances running on the same box. Standalone mode is often used by developers or small deployments, application deployments, usually where you want to have fine-grained control over the management of your server instances. Unlike earlier versions of JBoss EAP, we now have a single configuration file, the standalone.xml file, which we'll take a tour of a little later on, which resides in its own configuration directory. As touched on in the Unit 1 discussion on extensions, profiles and subsystems, the standalone config file has just a single unnamed profile associated with it, although we do ship, as mentioned previously as well, we do ship with 4 different config files that make it easy for you to stand up an instance of JBoss EAP that could participate in a cluster or offer the full Java EE services. In terms of functionality between standalone mode and domain mode, there is no functional difference between a server running in standalone mode and a server running in domain mode. Standalone mode servers and domain mode servers all offer the same services and the same functionality. The difference between the two modes is purely a management differentiation. Domain mode allows you to manage a bunch of servers and configure a bunch of servers in a similar manner in the same way, without having to individually resort to managing the instances in the within your domain. Standalone mode, if you set up multiple servers in standalone mode, then each one of them has to be managed independently, in much the same way that you may have done in previous versions of JBoss, if you've used previous versions of JBoss. One minor gotcha with JBoss standalone mode and domain mode, well actually it's a gotcha with domain mode, is that JBoss Operations Network doesn't at this stage support domain mode. There is a planned implementation in a future release for JBoss Operations Network and domain mode, but at this point in time standalone mode is the only mode that operates with JBoss Operations Network. So if your organization is using or planning to use JBoss Operations Network, then you will have to deploy your server instances as standalone instances, not domain instances. Alright, in the next section we will look at